We're going to start off talking about the key graphs that we should already be familiar with, which are your linear functions. And then your special cases of linear functions is an identity function and a constant function. So when we have a linear function, that is in our mx plus b, which if we remember, that m stands for my slope, and this b is my y-intercept. So I'm just going to graph some random line right here. I'm going to make it a decently steep slope. That's a little bit nicer. Okay, so there is my graph. So it's crossing at this y-intercept right here. This is my b. And then we're going to have whatever slope we have. So this one, we have a pretty negative slope going on here. Now, what is the domain and range of this graph? Domain, we're going from left to right. We're going arrow to arrow, right? The first, let me use this ruler here. We're talking about this edge right here. As I'm going from left to right, the leftmost thing I'm going to hit is that arrow, and the rightmost thing I'm going to hit is also this arrow. So my domain is negative infinity to infinity. And then my range, as I go from the bottom to the top, and I'm talking about this top edge here, that first thing I hit is this arrow, and the last thing I hit is also an arrow. So my range is also negative infinity to infinity. Now, symmetry is actually going to be next lesson. Nope, 2 lessons from now. So I don't really expect you to 100% get the symmetry yet, but I do want to just kind of introduce it and talk about it while we're talking about these key graphs. So this one here has no kind of symmetry. We have x-axis symmetry, y-axis symmetry, and origin symmetry, and that one doesn't have either there. Okay, so up here, I'm going to put a little asterisk anytime any of this information down here can change. And this one could change. It could have some kind of symmetry depending on what that line looks like. I'm going to put a little asterisk. That one can change. But any linear function here in the form of mx plus b will have a domain of all real numbers and a range of all real numbers. Now your identity function is again a special case of this. If we have y equals x, that means that we have a slope of 1, so that's the same as 1x. And we have a y-intercept of 0. This is the same as 1x plus 0. So y-intercept of 0. So on this graph, this starts right here at the origin, and then we're going to go up 1 over 1 positively. And it should end right there in that corner. And that's going to go the opposite way, down 1 to the left 1, going in that direction. And so here is my line there. So the domain is again negative infinity to infinity. My range is also negative infinity to infinity. And this one is what we call origin symmetry. And origin symmetry means if I took my paper and flipped it upside down, that's the exact same line, that's the exact same graph that we get. Okay, and then another extension of this one is the constant function. So y equals b. So here we have no slope since I don't have an x, and then my y-intercept will be at whatever B is. So if that's y equals 3, then I have a y-intercept right there at 3. If it's y equals -2, then I have a y-intercept right there at -2. So here, I'm just going to draw some horizontal line. And wherever that is crossing is my B right there. So my domain is from -infinity to infinity. But my range is going to be different this time. My range, as I go from the bottom to the top, the only y value I have is whatever my B is. So my range is those squiggly brackets B. So again, if that was y equals, that looks like 1.5, then my range would simply be 1.5. And then your symmetry is going to be y-axis symmetry. Okay, and one more time, I don't expect you to fully understand the symmetry. You're going to be asked no questions on symmetry. But when we get to lesson 7, we're in lesson 5. When we get to lesson 7, it's going to be all about symmetry. Hopefully you can kind of look back and these will make a little bit more sense here. But what that means is that y-axis, it looks the same on the left side as it does the right side. It's a mirror image of each other. So these are the 3 linear function key graphs that we need to be able to know. This works for any linear function with any slope and any y-intercept. And then these are your 2 special cases of this one right here. Your identity function is when you have a slope of 1 and a y-intercept of 0. And your constant function means we have a slope of 0, so it's a horizontal line, and your y-intercept is whatever that B is, whatever this number is right here.